Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are back on the main system. Yesterday, I spent after the show, putting that thing into the system. And guess what? It's working. It's working like a champ. We have it all working fine. We are doing what we're supposed to do. It's a solid state 2 terabyte drive. And guess what? It looks like it's holding. I got everything set up, moving 2 terabyte. Well, actually 1 and change terabytes of data is a big job. Anyway, let's get busy. Welcome aboard to the program. Welcome aboard in the house. AVQ, El Senor Michael Rudden from Brooklyn, New York. We also have in the house Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Yvette. How are you doing today? We also have Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Lee Grant from Montgomery County, Texas. Joe is in from Los Angeles, California. We also have Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. And I think that's all that I've listed that made themselves known in the chat. Anybody else in the chat, make yourself known so that I can call you out. You know, I like to call out my chat folks. On Substack, we have quite a few on as well. Coleman, Nancy, Reese, and several others that's already scrolled out of the thing. I don't know how to use this very well yet. Lee the Bearcat says, yo all. Lee the Bearcat is in the house. Lee is from Austin, Texas, I believe. We also have Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain, who says, happy Tuesday, everybody. Breach MCP is also in from Binghamton, New York. Welcome aboard. Man, we are all over the country from the West Coast to the East Coast to the Gulf Coast to way up north. So we're doing just fine all over the place. So we're well represented here. Let's start. Well, AVQ says, had family over yesterday for my 50th birthday. I hope you heard me sing for you. I don't know if you were around to hear me sing for you, but you know, we love you out here, my brother. Being an introvert as the center of attention was a really good time, but at the end felt drained and still feel tired out a day later. Listening in. Well, it's great having you here, my brother. We also have, let's see, Michael Renan says, had fam. Oh, I read that one already. I think you put that in there twice, bro. Exactly as expected, CNN, FBI turns over details of 5,000 employees who worked on January 6 cases to Trump Justice Department as Agent Sue. FBI officials have compiled with demands to provide the Justice Department with details of thousands of employees who worked on investigating relative to the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. According to people familiar with the situation, the demand has caused consternation among FBI employees who fear it is meant to amass a list of personnel for possible termination by the Trump administration. Of course, that's what it's for. FBI employees on Tuesday sued the Justice Department, accusing it of violating the Constitution and the privacy laws by demanding that agents a survey alleged designed to purge bureau personnel. NBC, FBI agents filed a lawsuit. We covered that already. Paul Fleming says Republicans have introduced a bill to abolish OSHA. As a former labor secretary, I know firsthand how crucial this agency is to protecting workers from their bosses who cut corners on safety to pad their own pockets. This is the party of corporate greed. I mean, this is a shame what I'm seeing here. Alistair Water is in the house from Conroe, Texas. Welcome aboard, Alistair Water. Great to have you here in the chat as well. Let's see what else we've got here. Paul Fleming says the NFL announced that it will still support DEI initiatives. No SHIT. If they didn't have black people, it would be rugby. That is funny, Paul Fleming. That is funny. Texas Stock Exchange. Why not? Eric Hayes, you want a fraudulent exchange? Well, they're all fraudulent anyway. Lee the Bearcat says, yo all, and Melanie Keelan says, happy Tuesday. Bridge MCP say, hey, peeps. And Paul Fleming says, IRS free file pilot program helped 140,000 taxpayers save 5.6 million in tax filing costs in 2024. Despite Musk's claim, the program is still running and is now available to 30 million people in 2025. Any attempt to dismantle it will enrich the tax prep industry at your expense. Already did a piece on that. Look it up at egbertowillies.com, where I pointed that thing out exactly, folks. Exactly. All right, Bridge MCP wants one for the screen. I bet I know which one it is. Yep, I saw that. I was going to cut that out and put it on, but I figured you would have it, Breach. Let me go ahead and put that on the screen for everybody to see. Where I pointed that thing out exactly, folks. Exactly. All right, Breach MCP wants one for the screen. I bet I know which one it is. Yep, I saw that. I was going to cut that out and put it on, but I figured you would have it, Breach. Let me go ahead and put that on the screen for everybody to see. Where I pointed that thing out exactly, folks. Exactly. All right, Breach MCP wants one for the screen. I bet I know. Oh my God, what was that all about? Did you guys hear that repeat? I have something set wrong when I redid the computer. There are certain files that I had, not files, but redirections that I had to do. Let me see which one went haywire there, because I know that shouldn't happen. What is this, a microphone? I think I need to take that off of track 2. Let's see. Let's try putting Breed stuff on the screen again, and let's see if I just fixed it or not. Let me see which one went haywire. No, I didn't fix it. Well, let's see, folks. We got to fix these things in real time to make sure that it all works. I think all of that is fine. The virtual is done correctly. All right. When I go onto the screen, I'm going to have to figure out how to stop the feedback. But anyhow, I'll take care of that later, but at least I got to show you guys that on the screen. Okay, continuing. We also have Melanie Keelan says, Egberto has a beautiful singing voice. Well, thank you. Coming from you, Melanie, that means everything. Lee the Bearcat says, Chuck Todd quitting and going on his own. Yes, he did that last week, and I think you'll see him. It looks like everybody's going to Substack these days because you can control your own mailing list and the people who want to follow people that they trust. And I have quite a few folks who trust. We are at a total of about 17 something subscribers, most of it free. We only have about, I think, 300 or so paid subscribers. I need at least 1,500 for us to be able to start getting some help in here. So those of you who are watching me on Substack, if you can provide a cup of coffee to make us continue doing this stuff the way we should. And by the way, a lot of folks are just coming up with newsletters and saying, they are charging a lot. I notice a lot of these reporters do that, but that's all they offer, their commentary, and that's it. What we do is we try to be we are activists, we are journalists, we write books, we do all the things, and you get it all. Those of you who become paid subscribers of our newsletter. So please consider doing that. Egberto.substack.com. Click on that, become a paid one. And again, it's rewarding because you're helping us move the progressive message. And if you want to see, folks, I need to fix this feedback here because I want to show something else on the screen. Let me go ahead and see what else is causing this feedback on this screen. Because anyway, I'll do that when I play the next video. All right, what else have we got here? Paul Fleming says Target stock has plummeted and is now being sued by shareholders for failing to disclose the risk of potential boycott stemming from cancellation of their diversity program. Every single company, I repeat, every single company that is currently dropping their DEI program, the boycott of that company must occur. The boycott or reduced spending at those companies must occur. Because what they are doing is they are actually showing alignment with the white, what is it called? The white alignment with the white nationalist movement. That's what those companies are doing. In fact, that's what one of the videos that I'm talking about today, that is one of the videos that we're going to see. Thank you for bringing that up, Paul Fleming. Lee the Beercat says, so will the debt of education get the axe? I don't think the Department of Education is going to get the axe. You know why? Guess who depends on Title VI and all these, Title IX and all these things more than anybody else? Yeah, MAGA does. Appalachia does. It is funny. Trump says he loves stupid people. That's what he says, right? And he actually says he loves stupid people because, again, what he believes is that they don't think for what's best for their own interests, etc., etc., etc. But here's the deal. You get rid of the Department of Education, the free lunches at schools, which if you go to Appalachia and certain parts of America, those kids, that's their meal for the day. All of that would be gone. The Department of Education does a lot. The problem is a lot of people don't know it. Here is why they want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of it because the idea here is a privatization of education. That's what they want to do. They want to get rid of public education, privatize it. Corporations then start making profits from getting people educated. Then you'll have states providing vouchers for private education, right? And those vouchers, in effect, is a transfer of your tax dollars to private companies that create schools and profit by giving you underpaid teachers, it's when I tell you this stuff is evil, what these guys want to do, I don't think you guys understand the level of scum, the level of grift that we're talking about here. All these programs that they want to cut are there so that we can make a minimalist government so that all these wealthy people can continue to use you as profit centers. So they want to get rid of USAID, right? What is that going to do? That's going to give them $40 billion, right? That they can give away to the wealthy folks. Now, getting rid of USAID means that later on we may have wars that we would normally have had, right? And what that means then is we'll have to later on invest in wars. And who makes money there? The wealthy guys who own the military-industrial complex. They want to get rid of the Department of Education. What that means is private education. What that means is new corporations get formed. And these corporations get formed to educate your kids. And who pays for it? Your tax dollars from everybody is going to go directly into the pockets of corporation. But you may say, but right now we're still paying taxes and the Department of Education doing its stuff. That is true. But again, the Department of Education is not there to make a profit. Therefore, all the monies in the Department of Education goes toward education minus what it costs to administer the program. But when it comes to the private sector, you got to pay the shareholder. You got to pay for every single executive that is in that new school that's being formed. You have to pay it gets expensive, and you are used to make money for a whole bunch of rich people. I wish more of us understood exactly what is happening out here, people. This is exactly what is happening. Anyhow, para ver qué más vamos a hacer. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and start should I do it now? Yesterday, I told you guys about Ali Velshi schooling MAGA about tariffs. Well, I didn't get to play it yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it now, and then later on we'll get into the one that I really want to talk about, which is DEI. So here we go. As you know, today tariffs were supposed to begin, and it turned out that Mexico came back real strong with Donald Trump. And because he knows he can't mess around with Sheinbaum, he knew that he had to come through somehow. So he got a face saver. She's going to put 10,000 troops on our several thousand-mile long border. And in exchange to save face for her, he has to control guns going into Mexico. In other words, nothing changed. This was as far as, and then there's a 30-day pause. You know, this guy got so much flack because he lied to the American people about tariffs. I actually think he really doesn't understand how tariffs work. That is how inept I think the man really is. And when he's talking about it's a negotiation scheme, what negotiations? Nothing really came out of these negotiations of any real substantive nature. But I want our MAGA brothers and sisters to learn something about tariffs, how they work. And I want them to see it from somebody who understands it well and is very good at bringing it all together. Ali Velshi, take it away.
Starting today, February 1st, imported goods from both Canada and Mexico will incur a 25% tariff, and imports from China will get hit with a 10% tariff. According to New York Times analysis, these tariffs could affect 40% of all U.S. imports, including everything from avocados to lumber to car parts to oil. Now, as I said, Mexico, Canada, and China are our biggest trading partners. The United States imports roughly $1.3 trillion worth of goods and materials from those three countries alone. Trump and his new press secretary have cited the flow of both migrants and drugs like fentanyl as the main reasons for imposing these tariffs, and Trump has claimed that the tariffs will raise trillions of dollars from foreign governments. But most economists agree that's not how this works. So let's dig into it. These tariffs are essentially a tax levied on imported goods, meaning that the U.S. companies which seek to buy goods from other countries must pay that additional tax or tariff. That fee is not paid by the nation that sends the goods, but by the American importer. And that increased cost is almost always passed on to American consumers to offset the company's new higher expense. For a moment, let's focus on the trade that occurs between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The North American trading bloc is the largest trading bloc in the world. The trading relationships we have with Mexico and Canada, respectively, are larger than any trade agreements we have anywhere else in the world. And because our North American bloc has enjoyed more than 30 years of free trade agreements, from the Auto Pact with Canada to the Free Trade Agreement with Canada to the North American Free Trade Agreement, which included the United States and Mexico, to the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, today, our three economies are deeply and intricately intertwined. In 2023, the United States imported roughly $475 billion worth of goods from Canada. Our top import from Canada is, far and away, crude oil. After that, top categories include automobiles and car parts, machinery like nuclear reactors, and materials like plastics, wood, metals, and a lot of minerals. The same year, the United States exported roughly $350 billion worth of goods to Canada, including automobiles and car parts, machinery, electronics, oil and gas products, and plastics. So we buy more from Canada than we sell. Now, to Mexico. In 2023, we imported roughly $418 billion worth of goods, a little less than we buy from Canada. Top imports from Mexico include automobiles and their parts, computers, crude oil, and fruits and vegetables. Notably, half of America's imported fruit and more than 2/3 of our imported vegetables come from Mexico. Mexico is also the number one supplier of medical supplies and devices for U.S. hospitals and doctors' offices. Now, in that same year, 2023, the United States exported roughly $320 billion worth of goods to Mexico, including electronic equipment, machinery, automobiles and parts, oil and gas products, and plastics, similar to Canada, and similarly, we sell Mexico less than we buy from them. Most American cars contain parts that are made in Mexico and Canada, and in the process of manufacturing, many American car parts cross continental borders multiple times. Experts estimate that barring exceptions, car prices will increase by thousands of dollars. Many products like cars, electronics, denim, blue jeans, home goods, processed foods, they cross back and forth between all three North American countries as they're processed from raw materials to parts to a finished product at the point of sale. The decades of free trade between us and our neighbors have allowed that process and that relationship to develop. The United States imports roughly 70% of its crude oil from Canada and Mexico. And though Trump has indicated that there may be a 10% tariff on petroleum products instead of the 25% tariff being applied to the other sectors, the Council on Foreign Relations suggests that American consumers can expect to see gas prices rise at least 50 cents per gallon. In response to these new tariffs, both Canada and Mexico have announced plans to implement retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, but the details on those are still to come. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that Canada will respond, quote, forcefully but reasonably. And Canada's former finance minister suggested targeted tariffs of their own in order to exert political pressure. Her suggestion, published as an op-ed in the Financial Times, suggested targeted tariffs on Tesla products and products from Republican-led states. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has also indicated that she is prepared to impose retaliatory tariffs, but hasn't provided details about what they might be. As our trade partners determine their responses to these new tariffs, Trump's new trade plan, now in effect today, has the potential to reshape decades of complex, hard-won international trade deals on which we've all come to rely.
I hope you understood what he's talking about. Now, there are two reasons, and I mentioned this when I spoke to Capital guy, Marlon Weems, over the weekend when we had a live Substack. Donald Trump figured two things. If he threw the tariffs on, there's a good possibility that what the budget numbers would show is some increase in revenue, with the expectation that that can be used to offset what he needs to offset to get a tax cut using reconciliation. But again, what he doesn't realize is that the economic damage is likely going to be much worse than the benefits he gets from his clones in accepting a tax cut. So I think he's probably going to want to back off somewhat now, because again, like I said, like everybody has told him, like we have told MAGA and those who want to believe his fallacies, you pay for the tariffs, and that money ultimately ends up in the hands of the billionaires. Aren't you tired of being screwed? You should be tired of being screwed. By the way, I think I found the problem. I'm going to try to put that screen up again that Breach gave. And you know what? There is a screen that Breach gave without the problem about the feedback, etc. All right, getting things back together after you had a severe crash is always a problem. All right, NBC break-in. I think I did that one already, Paul. Canada and Mexico already have militarized borders. We'll have to see what Trump does after being ridiculed. If Trump ever implemented tariffs, groceries will go up by 30 points. Of course. And yeah, he got, you know what? Trump got embarrassed by both Chambon and the Prime Minister of Canada, right? Man, why can't I remember his name right now? Anyway, Chambon and the Prime Minister of Canada. But you know what? He doesn't have to care too much about that, because guess what? The narrative that they put in all their paperwork to their people is that, all right, he manhandled Canada and Mexico. Trudeau, of course, Trudeau. All right, Alistair Waters in the house. She says, bad, bad, bad. Yes, Alistair, I hear you. Lee Grant says, Paul, welcome aboard. I just saw Maywood. Welcome aboard, Maywood. Lee Grant says, replying to Paul Fleming, basic tax prep is cheap. Why the big fuss? No, the big fuss is that $50 may be cheap for you, my dear brother. But for somebody who's starving or somebody who just trying to make that the government, look, first of all, if you have to pay the government taxes, I think it's the government who should be making these software packages. I don't think it's very inefficient for the government to come up with the rules and then have to give company number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, all these companies that have tax preparation software, teach them the mechanics of how to make money on teaching Americans how to pay their taxes. It's inefficient. While if you just have a portal, every American put their data into the portal and voila, it's done. Now, if you want to create special software that does some magical things that the government portal doesn't do, then you as a company should pay the government for getting the what they call it, the software the API, the application programming interface, so that you can use the government's application interface that you pay for, since you want to make money off of it on other Americans, and then they may get some added value that you want to provide them. But right now, the government provides the API, teaches them how to use it, and they make the money. Like I tell you, it's a ripoff, but what can I say? All right, Leave the Bearcat says, ex-Houston Housing Authority leader who resigned amid investigation involved questionable contracts lands a new job. Good for him. Donald Trump landed a new job after purportedly doing what a judge said was a rape on a woman, after stealing from his own charity, after ripping off his employees and not paying them, after creating a university that doesn't really exist, but he charged thousands of dollars for people to attend, and he still has a job. Hell, he's president of the United States. So I don't know that, that holds much water, my brother. All right, Paul Fleming says the U.S. air traffic control system has been stretched nearly to its breaking point by a decades-long staffing shortage. And I have a piece that I wanted to do about that. Here's the deal. The FAA has been losing traffic controllers all during the Obama administration, all during the Trump first administration, and it didn't start going up with more controllers until Biden came into effect. And as soon as Donald Trump lands, what does he do? He freezes hiring. He gets rid of the head of the FAA's security and the FAA, safety board, and much more. So maybe we should just go ahead right now and blame the crash on Donald Trump, given that he reversed everything that Biden did to increase more controllers. You see how that works? That is why Democrats are so lacking, because if Democrats had done what Donald Trump did when he came into office and got rid of the the security for the emergency response stuff for the air traffic controllers and froze hiring, you would have had every single right-wing station saying Biden is responsible for the crash because. But Democrats just stay silent. They just stayed silent. Okay, let's see what else we got. Bridge MCP says 2 unions and 1 advocacy group have filed a lawsuit to prevent billionaire Elon Musk, Department of Government Efficiency, from accessing the highly sensitive U.S. Treasury payment system, which manages Social Security, Medicaid, and other government operations. And guess what? If they're representing individual human beings, they have stand-in, which usually is the issue. All right. May would say I may have to leave early. I think I have to call with ACLU today, 4:30 Eastern. Man, you got our support, brother. All right. Let's see what else we got here. What else have we got here? I'm scrolling down. If I miss it, Egberto, Willies, don't you can do the screen? Yeah, let me put it on the screen. I got the screen fixed. I knew you were coming with something, so I had to fix the screen. How does it feel to be hired just because of your race and gender? And let me put it for our audience on our podcast that aren't seeing the video. There are 2 people sitting down. There's a white guy sitting down next to a black woman, okay? And he says to the black woman, how does it feel to be hired just because of your race and gender? And the black woman responds to him, you tell me. That is classic, and that is the reality. That is the reality. And, with that, I think it's about time to go ahead and play. Let me see if I need to answer. I tell you, guys, hey, Alisaran Dreams, welcome aboard, sis. Great to have you here. Let me go ahead and play the video for today, and then I will get back. Oh, I didn't put it on the screen. I'm sorry about that, Bridget. I didn't put it on the screen. Let's put it on the screen for everybody to see. There it is on the screen. A white guy asked a black woman, how does it feel to be hired just because of your race and gender? And she replies, please tell me. That is great. And I want you to listen to Ali Velshi on this particular segment here, because this puts it into perfect perspective. Here we go. Ali Velshi once again nails it. Very few journalists out there do it the way this journalist, Ali Velshi, is able to do it. And I tell you what, this takes being fearless in the way you're going to do journalism, even within the restriction of a mainstream media where right now they are cowering to Donald Trump. This was special. I want you guys to see the interaction between Ali Velshi, Professor Eddie Glaude, and legal analyst Melissa Murray, because this is how this subject is to be handled. And I tell you, I'll discuss this on the other side. Listen to this discussion on DEI, and we'll take it on the other side.
Without lowering any standards, because that's the mantra now, right? Pete Hegseth talks about it all the time. Why doesn't he like women in the military? Because they lower the standards for them. The president says when it comes to hiring, it should be about merit. Elon Musk talks about this all the time, that government agencies and companies need to, quote, restore the highest standards. It's a slogan based on a lie.
Right. Absolutely, Ali. And I think it's important for us to say that and to repeatedly say it. What was revealed in the president's press conference around the tragic death of 67 people was that DEI is a cudgel. It is what he uses to describe, shall we say, the diminishment of standards as he understands it. So there is an assumption, Ali, that by definition, if people of color, black, brown, if women, if people who are disabled, if they are in positions of authority, if they are in positions that have any sort of influence, standards are immediately compromised. And we have to understand that for what it is. It is a deeply offensive claim. It is a racist claim. It is a sexist claim. It's an ableist claim. And so what does it mean to agree with it? And I think this is what we have to begin to unpack. Now that we know what they mean by DEI, what does it mean for government agencies and for businesses to actually respond to this definition of DEI? They're conceding to what I take to be a white Christian nationalist agenda.
I'm going to play you something, Melissa, from what Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said with respect to this crash, and then I'm going to ask you about it on the other end. Let's listen.
When you are flying on an airplane with your loved ones, which every one of us in this room has, do you pray that your plane lands safely and gets you to your destination, or do you pray that the pilot has a certain skin color? I think we all know the answer to that question.
I don't even know what the question means, let alone know the answer to that question. Creating some kind of dichotomy that we shouldn't value diversity over safety, which means I don't know what you think she's saying. I don't know what she's saying.
Well, it seems pretty clear that the question here is whether diversity can coexist with merit. And I think that answer, just simply based on this show, is yes, it can coexist with merit. It does coexist with merit. But this is something that this president and this administration has been absolutely assiduous in pushing, that these two values are absolutely incompatible. And whenever you have diversity, you have a diminution of standards. And that's simply not the case. I mean, again, we are talking about DEI just weeks after we confirmed an individual who, under the prevailing standards for the Department of Defense, would not have been confirmed as Secretary of Defense only 10 years ago. So, I mean, the whole question of whether standards has been lowered really does seem to be rich given this context. But I want to just emphasize this assault on the deep state, the connection of the administrative state with diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is about rolling back the gains of the civil rights movement. It's about eliminating a sector of employment that has actually been pivotal to African Americans and other minorities getting a toehold in the middle class. This is about rolling back those gains, rolling back that prosperity, and putting a group of people in their place. This is about reestablishing, re-entrenching a form of racial and gender hierarchy.
This is an important point, Eddie. Let's mine this a little bit, because there were far more plane crashes before there was anything called DEI, before we had diversity in the federal workforce, before there were any pilots other than the Tuskegee Airmen there were no commercial, there were virtually no commercial black pilots. There were no women. Planes crashed a lot more, and that has a lot more to do with technology and where we are and safety. We didn't blame white people for the crashing of planes, nor should we have. We learned how to investigate plane crashes carefully and properly and come up with recommendations. Now it's about something else. Now it's about standards and diversity, because, as Melissa points out, we have a more equitable federal workforce.
Right. And we need to understand that shift for what it is. Right. It is a decidedly racist and sexist and masculinist agenda. I think we need to be able to name it, Ali. We've been tracking, prior to his election as president, the influence of white nationalism, of white Christian nationalism on the Trump campaign. We were talking about its elements in Project 2025, and now we see it show up in policy, and we're not using the language. Why not? We're relitigating the mid-20th century. We're relitigating the Black freedom struggle. We're relitigating the women's movement. We're relitigating the gay liberation movement. We need to understand what's motivating it. And let's be clear. And I just have to say this, right? Every time the country tires of the quest for racial justice, it falls into this illusion, this fantasy of trying to get rid of us, of trying to move us to the margins, to banish difference. That's the only way a notion of American identity can cohere, is that whiteness must be its anchor. Whiteness and maleness must be its anchor. So we're right back where we have always been. This is the contradiction that has shadowed this country since its founding. And here we are barreling towards 250 years of America, and we're still grappling with the same nonsense, Ali.
So what do we do in the face, Melissa, of the evidence that's otherwise? When Pete Hegseth got sworn in and then made some comments afterward, he talked about the boys out there, and I always think about the men in the military. He kind of just skipped talking about women, fighting men and women. They are elected to Congress. Tammy Baldwin lost her legs as a helicopter. Tammy Duckworth, Senator Tammy Duckworth, lost her legs as a helicopter pilot. What is enough? What is enough to disprove Eddie's point that people come, they serve, they die, they provide their expertise, they get better educations? When is enough for America to not do what Eddie says we keep doing?
I think that's the $1 million question, Ali. It will never be enough. Right. I mean, this whole assault on DEI, who is a DEI hire? We don't know who was hired because of DEI policies. The assumption is simply that any person who is a person of color or a woman with a high ranking job is undeserving, got this job because of a racial preference or a gender preference, and should not be there. Took something away from someone else. I think we have to resist this narrative, resist this framing. I think we need to emphasize the idea that DEI is not about racial preferences. They constantly frame this in the language of race, but it's also about accommodating workers, making parental work leave policies more accessible so that all individuals can participate in paid work. It's much broader than simply the question of race or ethnicity or gender. And we have to emphasize that. At bottom, DEI is about making sure that no talent is left on the table. When we didn't have DEI policies, when we prioritized the hiring of white men, we were effectively looking at only half of the talent pool, which necessarily meant we were leaving talent on the table. If we want to be a truly great country, if we want to restore America's greatness, we can't leave behind talented people who could contribute to our society. And that needs to be the message. And frankly, I would love to hear some of our elected officials on the left start talking about this.
Now, that was complete. Anybody who leaves that discussion not understanding that the false narrative placed out there by Donald Trump, the right wing, and all his sycophants, they're being willfully ignorant or distracted by their own prejudice, racism, sexism, and all these other isms. More importantly, the companies who are following the lead of Donald Trump's ill-advised change in DEI policies for the United States government, any company following that, as Eddie Glaude pointed out, they should be considered white nationalist companies. I know our brother can't say it on TV, meaning Ali Velshi can't say that. After all, many of these companies are the ones that fund with their advertising these mainstream media outlets. But the reality is, all these people that are appearing on network TV, assuming some of these network TVs decide to get rid of that policy as well, all people's jobs, those that are not of the majority population, also become endangered. But here's the deal, and I repeat, we must consider any company that removed their DEI policies as a company adjacent to white nationalists, because it is an attempt to appease white nationalism, appease the right, and appease those who would do no good to society at large. So I want you to share this video. I want you to share the work of these three exceptional people, because it is this kind of discussion that's going to make a difference with thinking people. It's this kind of a discussion that's going to make a difference with those who still have a mind and decide to make use of it. Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Anyway, Lee the Bearcat says, did all the countries agree with America in the end? No. Panama, Mexico, Colombia, Canada? No. But you didn't hear the full story. That's why I tell you about right-wing media versus real media. Let's start with Colombia. They didn't bring in the Colombian expatriates. They didn't bring them in U.S. military planes. Instead, Colombia gave them a dignified re-entry by sending Colombian planes to pick them up. So no, the narrative that went to the MAGA was that Donald Trump, with no changes, he just sent his planes back and dumped his Colombians back into Colombia. Nope, that didn't happen. Colombia went ahead and said the only reason we're stopping you from bringing these folks is that we want dignified people coming into treating our people with dignity. All right, number 2, let's go to Mexico, or better known as Mexico. Mexico said, okay, we'll put 10,000 folks on the border to protect your border. But guess what? Mexico was already having to have all these soldiers all along that 1,000-mile border to protect themselves from whom? From our guns. And Trump had to go ahead and accept from Mexico that, okay, we will try to slow down guns coming into Mexico. He didn't say that in his expose to MAGA, but that's what the agreement was with Mexico. Now with Canada, you know what? The Canadian just went ahead and gave them the same thing that Biden and Trudeau was talking about. Hey, guess what? We are going to put $1.5 billion into monitoring the border. But guess what? Canada was going to do that anyway. And let's go to Panama. This morning, because I'm doing a piece in Spanish in Panama, this morning I was listening to the TV station in Spanish in Panama to hear exactly what happened after Rubio left. The bottom line is Panama said, esto no es nada por la soberanía del canal, meaning the sovereignty of the canal is not we're not talking about Panamanian sovereignty on the canal. We're not talking about any of that. We listen to Rubio so he can tell us about Trump's concerns, and we have it under advisement. We'll go ahead and research the concerns that he has. And then Rubio left and went to El Salvador. And he went to the crazy man in El Salvador who said, all right, we will imprison those people for you, including Rubio. If you want to bring Americans here to El Salvador as well, you can lock them up in El Salvador as well. Of course, America can't deport Americans, so I don't know how that's going to work. So no, Mr. Beercat, get your news from reliable sources. Go outside the country. Get the Canadian news. Get the Mexican news. Get the Panamanian news. Get the Colombian news. And then you'll be able to get real information. All right, AC Rodriguez says, and that's true, AC, Keith Olbermann has a good strategy on blaming everything that's happening on Trump's watch on Trump. Exactly. That's what Democrats should be doing. That's what Democrats should be doing. AC Rodriguez also said, white men are crying now that 200 years or so of DEI they have been privileged to is being expanded to other groups as well. You know, and that is the thing that really gets me, right? I'm for everybody having equal access to success. And that wasn't how it used to be. That's all. All right. Michael Rani says, company arrived. Well, go enjoy your company, my brother. Go enjoy your company. AC Rodriguez says, interesting how right-wingers can research in Google things that they want to try to debunk, but not things that oppose their worldview or inconvenient facts for their beliefs. Let me tell you what else right-wing does. Okay, this is important, and I want everybody here to listen to this. The right wing floods the internet with bad information so that they do a lot of very good SEO on it. What do I mean by that? Whenever I write an article or I do a video, I try to write something that is a truthful description so that the search engines will categorize it appropriately. There are other things you can do to do what's called SEO, which stands for search engine optimization, right? You can do certain things so that it'll be relevant when searches are done. Well, that's not what the right wing does for their things. What they do is they create false stories, but they do some very, very good SEO so that if a right winger looks up some sort of a conspiracy theory, that stuff will show up at the top of the engine. Now, what does people like myself and other progressives are doing? We don't have the money to invest in search engine operatives, search engine specialists. So what we have to do is we have to go in there, make sure that for every story, we make sure that we have a story that covers it. So when you see me have a story that sometimes you're like, why did you waste time on putting up a story about that occurred on a silly story that occurred on MSNBC about some conspiracy theory? Why do you write a story about that? I write a story about that on Substack and Instagram and everywhere else so that the search engines, when it finds that bad story from that conspiracy story, there is a story from a reputable source, Politics Done Right, that is there to counteract that story. So we progressives that's doing this work have to put a lot of messages out there, a lot of stories out there so that the search engines can absorb it. And then there can be a comparative analysis of the data, and the search engines themselves should be getting smarter. Unfortunately, now that we have Zuckerberg as a friend of Trump and others, we have to do all kinds of magical things to understand that the search engine is not going to go out of its way to give you factual information. Now we're dependent on yet third-party applications like AI that's going to weight different data and weight who they consider more reputable to give you a more reputable answer. I've been doing some tests with deep, what is it called? Deep Stake, the new one from China. And it has quite a few errors in it, but it is pretty accurate as well. But again, so when you see the amount of writing that we do and the amount of stories that we put out there in the ethos, it is to counteract all of that's happening on the right to ill-inform, to misinform its people. And that's what we do. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Alisarian Dream says, what borders on stupidity? Yep. But he says, Lee Grant, the troops were already there with the deal with Biden. They're laughing at him, agreeing on things already in place. Again, but because he's dumb and doesn't know, He doesn't know. The Panama Canal is too big to leave it to the Chinese. Huh? Oh my God. You don't understand the canal leave. By the way, remember, I am from Panama. And by the way, when I lived in Paraíso, I just had to walk up the hill to look down in Culebra Cut, which is that deep cut in the middle of the mountains, and watch all those ships go through. Maywood says, has anyone ever noticed that the far right is all about freedom of choice, only as long as their corporations make money on it, but give people a choice that would save them money, be more convenient, or otherwise cut into their corporate profits? And it's, oh no, you can't do that. Yeah, it's a farce. Everything that they do is a farce. I hate to just make a blanket statement like that, but that's the truth. And anybody wants to contest that, do that. Anyway, folks, let me just tell you before I close down for the day. Remember, this is a new installation that I had to do after we had, let's see, Lee the Bearcat says, lots of corporations will not allow DeepSeek or other AI use on their employees' computers. Well, I'm using DeepSeek to research, and I've been checking to see how good it is. And I think it compares admirably with ChatGPT. So, what can I say? And they did it for a lot less money, right? They didn't rip people off to build it. All right. Let me see. Somebody give me a call, because I want to make sure that my new setup that I did. Remember, I spent a whole lot of time putting this all back together after we had the big crash. Give me a call so I can test this stuff out, my dear brothers and sisters. Anybody can give me a call. Telephone number is 281-823-7747. One more time, 281-823-7747. Before I go today, I would love for somebody to give me a call to test out the phone system to make sure it is still functional. I'll call for it una vez más. Una vez más voy a preguntar por esto. 281-823-7747, 281-823-7747. Come on, folks, give me a call. I want to make sure it's working correctly, or is somebody calling me and I'm not getting the call? I don't know. Please give me a call before we shut this baby down. Let's see. I just brought it up to see. It should be started automatically. Let's see. Give me a call. Somebody, 281-823-7747. I guess nobody's going to call me. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and close the show down. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Please remember to share it. Remember that for those of you on Substack, we go ahead and reformat the program so that you can watch it on Substack. Those who are our paid subscribers get a full view of our entire list of podcasts forever and ever. Amen. Folks, please support the program however you can. The best way to support the program, or the way that we're asking you to support the program, is to go ahead and become a paid subscriber of our newsletter. How can you do that? Go to politicsdoneright.com/Substack, which is I just put that into the chat. Another way, or you can do it at Egberto.substack.com. Egberto.substack.com. And there it is. We need about 1,500 subscribers so that we can get a copywriter, copywriter. We also need a copy editor, is that what it's actually called. And I need some help with some of the narrative for videos, etc. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber to our newsletter by going to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I guess nobody's going to call me, so I'm going to have to shut down today without knowing if after doing the setup, everything worked. I didn't have time to test it yesterday. That's why I'm trying to use one of you guys as our guinea pigs. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, share it. Let me see before I leave if I have something else to read. Let's see. You have the illusion that you're not a wage slave in capital. Actually, whoever talks about capitalism as slavery understands the concept, as Richard Wolff has come on here and talked about it many times. Yeah, capitalism is slavery, folks. It's antiseptic slavery. but albeit it's still slavery. But what can I say? Till we get a better system, we'll just have to make this form of slavery continue to be as palatable as it can be. As palatable as it can be. All right. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.